Hey folks, David Stewart here. Don't forget, New Pub Talk happens every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk about this book right here today, An Encyclopedia of Tolkien by David Day. If you remember, I talked about his Tolkien Bestiary on the channel. I grew up with this book and I have a lot of love for it. So I saw this one and I went ahead and picked it up. I think David Day actually stopped by the channel to mention that he had come out with it. So let's take a look at it. And I want to give you a couple of insights and relate it a little bit to the Tolkien Bestiary. So first of all, let's take a look at the size and the price and the binding, because I got this for $14.99, but that's a Costco price. And the regular retail is $24.99 or $34 in Canada. I think for that price, especially if you're getting it for $14.99, it's a really good product. The binding is really, really good. So we have this nice faux leather exterior, and we have this image embossed into it really quite nicely. It feels nice. It looks very good. This is one of the art panels from the previous book, and indeed there's a lot of art from the previous book reused in this one. The gold trim looks nice. Everything about the binding really looks top-notch. Rather than going with the dust jacket, they went with a nice embossed faux leather cover. And likewise, we have some really nice in-papers, full-color in-papers in both the back and the front and the back. The rest of the book, however, is in black and white, and we do have some nice gilded pages. So this is a 6x9 book. To give you perspective, there's a trade paperback, and for $14.99, that's often what I sell a lot of my trade paperbacks for. Gives you an idea of the size and the price. It's a decent size, but it is not as big as this Tolkien Bestiary. So if you're looking at it as an art book, it's not going to be as good as this one. But let's start with what content is actually in the book as far as reference. This is a great little Tolkien reference book if you're looking for a Tolkien reference book, and it is pretty fortuitously timed. We do have that Amazon series that is coming out based on Tolkien's work. So if somebody is watching that, or they don't really want to pick up the books, but maybe they want to know a little bit more of lore, then this is a great option, as is the Bestiary. Now, the Bestiary takes a more narrow approach. It's pretty much just talking about the creatures in Middle-earth, the races, and that's how it's categorized. The Encyclopedia of Tolkien takes a broader approach and will define, there's entries for characters in here. So there's an entry for Gandalf, there's an entry for Galadriel. So if you were watching that series and you just wanted to, take a look at Galadriel, you can just look up Galadriel and find her entry and read something about her, which is great. Now, also included in this is a whole bunch of stuff that's not in Lord of the Rings, that's just maybe influences on it, things that aren't really part of the universe, whereas the Tolkien Bestiary is pretty much totally in universe. So here's an entry on Mordred. I know they did something interesting with the formatting of this book. So if it is not in Tolkien's work, it has this really standard font. I'm not sure what font this is, but this nice standard serif font. And if it is an entry that has to do with Tolkien, it will instead use this slightly stylized font, and will also be indented a little bit. So the difference between an entry talking about, say, Nidhogg, it's like a dragon that's chewing up Yggdrasil, and then Nienna. This is a Tolkien character. You can tell by the slightly stylized, slightly Celtic font, and this is going to be a mythological thing, something from outside of it. Same thing with Njord here. So that is a really good piece of content. And if you were just looking at a basic encyclopedic entry style look into Tolkien, I actually think in terms of content, this one is superior to the Bestiary, but the Bestiary is great as well. Now, if you're looking at it as an art book, the Bestiary is, of course, going to be superior, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. So the first reason, if we take a look at the Tolkien Encyclopedia, and maybe you've noticed this, is that the paper is quite thin. And so as a result, there's a lot of bleed through of various things. So if I go over here to that Galadriel entry that I had, you can see that there's some kind of image on the back here. It bleeds through the paper, and that's because the paper's quite thin and flimsy. It's a rather delicate page. And so when you have these thin pages, and they're also yellow, I think they're very suboptimal for looking at this kind of art, this black and white art. if we were to compare it to the Tolkien Bestiary. First thing you might notice on the screen is just how much whiter this page is. This page is very yellow. This page is very white. So when you have a yellow page, things look lower contrast. When you have a whiter page, things look higher contrast, and in general, the detail pops out a lot more. You can also see that it's bigger. It's just, Galadriel here is like 8 or 9 inches tall. Here, she's like 5 inches tall. So there's a big, significant difference. You'll also notice there's gray artifacts. Hopefully you can see that. So this whole section of the art looks quite gray, and they kind of cropped around her. Whereas in this case, we have the art going all the way up. It's fully black. All the blacks look completely black. Here, and here they look really gray. They're very washed out. And it has to do with the way the ink is interacting with this thin page. It's not sitting in the page in the exact place. It maybe looks a little blurry in some places. This might have been a digital style printing. It doesn't look that bad, but trust me, it looks very much inferior to this traditional printing on this ice white page. And if you look here, maybe you can see on your screen, maybe it's hard, you can see every single individual pin mark very clearly. You can see where the artist was dotting. Here, all that detail really gets lost. And because this is a pen and ink drawing, which is just black and white, 2 colors, it's the page or the ink that you put on it. We have a much crisper image here than what we get with this. And there's also this perception of gray that happens in lots of different places. Partly because the ink doesn't sit right on the page, partly because of some other artifact with the transfer. And this is something I actually noticed throughout the book. So the book uses a lot of the art from the Bestiary. It reuses a large portion of the art. There is a lot of new art in here. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to buy it. There is new art and it's different content. But if you're looking for the highest quality art, the Bestiary is going to be better. But one of the things you might notice is that this is nice paper. It's slightly glossy and it's thick. This is really thick paper. There's no bleed through on this kind of paper. Everything just looks really, really good, and it's designed around that high quality printing. But this is a more budget friendly book. And I'm not even sure what the retail price on the Bestiary would be these days with this huge hard binding. I know some people have a paperback version of this. I've had this book for 30 years and it's actually really held up to my abuse. But if you're looking for the highest quality art, it's going to be this one. Also, this one has color plates, which look really good. This one has no color. It's entirely in black and white. So that is really the big drawback here. There is some new art. The new art in general looks a little bit better than the old art transferred in. And I'm not sure why that is, but it just has a crisper look. Maybe because some part of the digital transfer process, it just looks much better than it did, than the transfer of the old art does. But we still have some cases like, I don't know if you can see here, this image is so black, you can't really tell what's going on. This might be a tree. It's like you have to look really close to see any of the details, and that's because there's, it's like when you print on this kind of yellow page and the page is not good at absorbing the ink, it's like you turn down the contrast on an image and it becomes like a washed out, slightly bright gray image. You turn down the contrast and turn up the brightness, and that's what this image looks like. So there's a couple places where the images really just are subpar in quality. If they're an image that has a lot of light to it. Now this is a black and white transfer of a color image, and maybe I can show you the difference between these two. Yeah, here it is. So here's the black and white image. You can see a lot of the art also gets lost in the fold, in the gutter. That's a little bit of a formatting thing. Not my favorite, but in this case, you can see that none of the art gets lost in the gutter. This lays almost completely flat when you open it up. And granted, it's quite well used by myself. You can really get a great perception of the art. Whereas here you can see you're missing part of this pillar. And when you see it in full color, it's really hard to go back to seeing just the black and white version that has this kind of muddy black-gray appearance to it. So that's the drawback of the book. It's just not as good for the art. It's not terrible for the art if you don't have the Bestiary and you want a more budget-friendly way to experience a lot of this art. Or right here, like this goblin's face is just kind of lost in the gutter. This is really not what I would want from an art book. But if you're looking for the reference content with some art, then it's not that bad for the price, in my opinion. And I'm okay buying it. I'm okay with it sitting on my shelf. And my son has already had a lot of fun looking through all the pictures and talking to me about all the various monsters that are in it. He likes the other book as well too. So that's what I thought I would reveal about this one. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.